Habit number 2. Speaking every day, even to myself. I didn't have any fluent friends to practice with. I didn't live in an English-speaking country. I couldn't afford expensive tutors. But I had one thing: my voice. So I made a deal with myself. I would speak in English every day, no matter what. To whom? To myself. It felt weird at first. I'd look around to make sure no one was listening. But once I started, I didn't stop. I began by narrating my day out loud. Okay, I'm brushing my teeth now. I need to finish this assignment. What should I eat for lunch today? Then I tried role-playing situations. I pretended I was at a cafe ordering coffee. Hi, can I get a cappuccino, please? Do you have almond milk? Thanks. Have a great day. I did this while walking, cleaning, or even looking in the mirror. Speaking out loud helped me in 3 powerful ways. 1. It trained my mouth to move in new ways. English sounds are different from my native language, and repeating phrases helped my tongue adjust. 2. It trained my brain to think in English. No more translating. I started forming thoughts directly in the language. 3. It trained my confidence. I got used to hearing my own voice in English. I wasn't afraid of sounding weird anymore. Eventually, I moved on to recording myself. I'd talk about my day, a movie I watched, or even summarize news articles. Then I'd listen to the recordings, cringe a little, and take notes on what I could improve. Sometimes I would mimic native speakers. I'd pause a podcast or a movie and repeat what they said, same tone, same speed, same emotion. This technique, often called shadowing, became a game I loved. One day, I watched a TED Talk and gave my own 5-minute TED Talk afterward, pretending I was the speaker. No one saw these moments, but they built the foundation of my spoken English. Speaking out loud every day didn't just improve my pronunciation. It helped me stop being afraid. And that fear, more than grammar or vocabulary, was my biggest enemy. Joining the world with growing confidence, I wanted to talk to real people. So I joined online communities where English learners practice together. The first time I spoke in a group video call, my heart raced. I introduced myself, stumbled over my words, forgot how to say engineer, and turned bright red. But something beautiful happened. No one laughed. They understood. They had been there too. They encouraged me, and I realized most people aren't judging you, they're cheering for you. From that day, I joined weekly practice sessions. Sometimes we talked about hobbies. Sometimes we played games. Sometimes we just shared jokes. Speaking with others gave me real-world feedback. I learned which phrases sounded awkward, which words I overused, and what I needed to work on. But more importantly, it made English social. It stopped being a subject. It became a connection. Habit number 3. Reading aloud daily. While speaking out loud helped me express myself, there was another habit that helped me sound more natural: reading aloud. I stumbled upon this by accident. I was reading a short story one night and found a sentence I really liked. I whispered it aloud, just for fun. The sound of it, the rhythm, the pause, the emotion, it felt alive. So the next day, I tried reading a full page out loud. I mispronounced words. I tripped over long sentences, but I kept going. Soon, I added 15 minutes of read aloud practice to my daily routine. I started with short stories, then articles, then full novels. Eventually, I even read Shakespeare monologues just to test myself. Reading aloud had 3 major benefits. 1. Pronunciation and clarity. I could hear how I sounded and fix words. I was saying incorrectly. 2. Flow and fluency. My speech became smoother. I learned when to pause, where to emphasize, how to express emotions. 3. Vocabulary and grammar in action. I saw how real writers use the language, not just textbook examples. It felt like combining listening, speaking, and reading into one habit, and it made me fall in love with the music of English. From struggling to speaking freely, one of the turning points in my journey came during a family trip. We met a couple from Canada at a cafe. My uncle, who spoke very little English, asked me to help translate. I panicked at first, but then I stepped up. For 20 minutes, I had a full conversation with two strangers from across the world. We talked about our cities, food, the weather, and even exchanged jokes. When they left, one of them said, "Your English is great. Are you studying abroad?" I smiled and said, "Nope, just learning from home." That moment stayed with me. It wasn't about sounding perfect. I still made grammar mistakes. I still paused sometimes. But I communicated. I connected. I understood and was understood. And that, to me, was fluency. Beyond the basics, digging deeper. Once I had some fluency, I became curious about deeper parts of the language like idioms, slang, cultural references. These weren't taught in textbooks, but they were everywhere in real conversations. I began keeping a small notebook where I collected new expressions. Hit the books to study hard. Break a leg, good luck. Spill the tea, share gossip. I learned these mostly through TV shows, vlogs, and casual chats. I started using them in conversations, and people responded with surprise and delight. "You sound like a native," someone said once. Not quite, I thought, but getting closer. The mindset shift. Looking back, the biggest change wasn't just in my skills, it was in my mindset. Before, I feared English. I avoided it. I thought fluency was only for the talented or lucky ones. But as I built habit after habit, I realized fluency is not a gift. It's a practice. Mistakes are not failures. They're stepping stones. You don't need a perfect accent. You need clear, confident communication. And above all, I learned this. You have to love the process. There were days when I felt stuck, days I doubted myself, but the habits pulled me forward because I wasn't learning English for a test or a certificate. I was learning it for me, from fear to freedom, in just over a year. I went from stammering in fear to speaking in front of strangers. I went from hiding behind subtitles to understanding every word of a movie. I went from avoiding English to craving it. And none of this happened overnight. It happened because I committed to 5 simple words. Speak, listen, read, write, repeat. That's it. Day by day, week by week. And slowly, I didn't just learn English. I became fluent. By the time I reached the 3rd year of my fluency journey, something had changed, not just in my English skills, but in my identity. I no longer saw English as a subject I had to pass or a challenge I had to overcome. I saw it as a tool, one that helped me connect with people, learn new things, and express myself in ways I never imagined. I was still learning, of course. Language is infinite, and even native speakers keep learning every day. But I had reached a point where I could think, speak, and write comfortably in English. I could hold deep conversations, understand movies without subtitles, and even make jokes. That's when I realized fluency isn't a final destination. It's a mindset. And it's built day by day through simple, consistent habits. Let me take you through the final two habits that helped me reach full fluency. Habit number 4. Writing regularly journals, blogs, and social media. Writing was the habit I resisted the most in the beginning. It felt intimidating. Speaking could be messy, no one expected perfect grammar. But writing, that felt like it had to be polished, correct, academic. That mindset held me back for a long time. But one day, while reading an English blog post, I came across a quote: "If you can't write clearly, you don't think clearly." It hit me hard. Maybe the real reason I struggled to express myself was because I hadn't practiced shaping my thoughts in English. Speaking was spontaneous. Listening helped me absorb the rhythm, but writing that would help me organize my ideas. So I started small, a private journal, just a few lines a day. At first, it was things like, "Today I felt tired because I studied a lot. I watched a movie called Inception. It was confusing but interesting. I'm nervous about my exam next week." It was simple, broken even, but it was mine. And I kept doing it every single day. Some days I wrote more. I described my dreams, my goals, my regrets. Sometimes I wrote letters I never sent. Sometimes I copied sentences I liked from books and tried to rewrite them in my own way. Eventually, I created a private blog and started posting weekly entries about my English learning journey. It was anonymous at first, but I received encouraging comments from fellow learners around the world. That gave me the courage to share more. Later, I began posting short thoughts and stories on social media in English. At first, people corrected me. Some even laughed, but others supported me, and that support meant everything. With time, my writing improved dramatically. I became more aware of grammar and vocabulary, not by studying textbooks, but by using the language to say something meaningful. Writing made me realize that mistakes were part of growth. Each time I misspelled a word or used a wrong phrase, I learned something new. Most importantly, writing taught me confidence, and that confidence fueled everything else. Habit number 5. Learning in context, not memorizing. By now, I had built strong habits in listening, speaking, reading, and writing. But there was still one more piece of the puzzle, a mindset shift that changed how I learned the language. In school, we're often taught to memorize vocabulary lists, grammar rules, definitions. But I noticed something strange. Every time I memorized 10 new words from a list, I'd forget them within a week. But if I learned a word while watching a movie, reading a book, or having a conversation, it stuck. That's when I realized memorization wasn't working for me. Context was. So I stopped studying word lists. I stopped looking up every unfamiliar word and writing it down like a robot. Instead, I started learning words in context. If I heard a phrase like "give someone a heads up" in a podcast, I didn't rush to the dictionary. I listened to how it was used, what the tone was, what came before and after. Then I looked it up after I had a rough idea. I created a vocabulary notebook, not a list, but a journal of phrases, idioms, and expressions I encountered naturally. For each one, I wrote the sentence I saw or heard it in, my guess of what it meant, the correct meaning after checking, my own sentence using it. This made vocabulary personal. It wasn't just words to learn. It was language I had discovered, explored, and made my own. The same happened with grammar. Instead of drilling exercises, I started noticing patterns. Why did the character say "I've been waiting" instead of "I wait"? Why did a friend say "could you pass me the salt" instead of "give me the salt"? I started asking questions not to memorize, but to understand. And every time I found an answer, I remembered it because it was part of a real experience, not just a rule in a book. This habit made English come alive, putting it all together. By now, I had built a lifestyle around English. I listened to English every day, podcasts, music, and shows. I spoke to myself, to others, to the mirror every single day. I read aloud to train my mouth and ears at the same time. I wrote consistently to sharpen my thoughts. I learned in context, not through memorization. Each habit supported the others. If I heard a new phrase in a podcast, I'd write it in my notebook. Then I'd try using it while speaking. Later, I'd include it in my journal. Soon, it became part of my vocabulary. Language wasn't separate skills anymore, it was one big connected world, and I was finally fluent enough to live in it. Real life wins. I still remember the first time I helped a lost tourist in my city. She asked, "Do you know how to get to the museum?" And without hesitation, I replied, "Sure, just walk straight, then take a left at the bookstore. It's right there." Her smile and my confidence that moment meant everything. Or the time I joined an international book club and discussed To Kill a Mockingbird with readers from 5 different countries. We debated characters, shared personal experiences, and laughed together, all in English. Or the day I applied for an internship that required fluency in English, passed the interview, and got the job. These moments were more than just proof of fluency. They were reminders of how far I had come. Final thoughts. From fluency to freedom. Learning English changed my life, but not just because I could speak another language. It changed how I saw myself. It taught me patience, resilience, and the power of small habits. Each step of the journey taught me something deeper. Listening taught me empathy, how to hear without judgment. Speaking taught me courage to use my voice even when it trembled. Reading aloud taught me presence, to live in the moment of each sentence. Writing taught me reflection, to understand my thoughts clearly. Learning in context taught me curiosity, to explore, not just remember. And now, when people ask me, "How did you become fluent in English?" I smile and say, it wasn't magic. It was habits, built one day at a time. So if you're reading this, wondering if you'll ever feel fluent, trust me, you can. Start with one habit. Keep it simple. Stay consistent. Fluency isn't far away. It's already within you, waiting to grow. Just begin.